Good evening, wherever you are in the world. My name is Jean MacDonald, and I have written a book called Love, Sex and the Midlife Woman. The subtitle of the book is Your Guide to Empowering Intimate Relationships. The basic message of the book is that midlife women are missing out on life and love. This is because they are a forgotten and ignored part of our society. And the trouble is, they compound this by hiding themselves. They hide in other roles of being a parent or a grandparent, or being a housekeeper, even being a career woman or entrepreneur. But they often have what I call a love deficit. They don't allow themselves the time to emerge as the beautiful, feminine, powerful women that they are capable of being. As my good friend Adrian Marks, who wrote a wonderful book called Me Time, they don't allow themselves the me time to find themselves. Now you might ask, what qualifies me to take on this task of empowering midlife women? And that's a fair question. I was born a boy, but I've always been fascinated by the way girls and women live and all things feminine. This started long before puberty. But then I went on to live successfully as a man for 40 odd years. But after that, I started to move towards living as a woman. This means I can see things from both the feminine and masculine point of view. I've met so many midlife women who are finding things difficult and who've been willing to talk to me about their love and life challenges and experiences. And without realizing it, I had been collecting data for this book and observations and experience for at least the last 15 years. The purpose of the book, Love, Sex and the Midlife Woman, is to help midlife women regain their confidence and learn to wield their feminine power. The gateway to this mostly comes from finding themselves and finding love. As I've observed, nearly all successful, happy, balanced women have a platform of love to support them. This usually comes from a traditional cohabiting male partner, but not always. And how do they find that love? I believe they get it from recognizing their own value and potential and learning to love themselves. With this comes reviving their own femininity and, dare I say it, their sexuality. Hence the title of my book, Love, Sex and the Midlife Woman. We know we have a high divorce and separation rate among midlife couples, and that leads many midlife women to finding themselves on their own. That may seem to be a major setback, but it also can be a great opportunity. On the other hand, many of the relationships that are apparently holding together are not that great. A common complaint I hear from midlife women is that they do not feel loved, or that they do not get back love in the quantity that they give it. What I would like is for more women to find more love through finding their feminine power. This involves, firstly, the most frightening step of digging down inside to find themselves. The term midlife is deliberately vague on age because women reach their midlife crisis, or I prefer to call it their time of change, at different ages. We can say there is a core age group of 45 to 54, or thereabouts, but they can be any age from 35 to whenever. A new midlife woman can emerge at any time. Producing the book, Love, Sex and the Midlife Woman, is only the beginning. I want to create a support system for new midlife women who are moving forward to find love, fulfillment and happiness. I'm assembling a group of experts who can give specialist help in all sorts of areas that are helpful to new midlife women. And what I've learned from the wonderful Marina Nani of Radio Works World is that midlife women all over the world are sharing this same sort of experience. That is a sort of identity crisis which asks the question, what is my role and purpose for the second half of my life? We agreed that the biggest enemy we face is isolation. We feel we are not understood, and the only people we can talk to are other women in a similar situation, but they're equally confused. With a better understanding of what is happening to us and the strong forces at work within us, we can deal with the situation better. For that reason, we are creating a community for new midlife women to connect and support each other. Initially, this will be online, but later on I hope it will move towards more physical interactions. As we all know from the Radio Works World Network, we are very fortunate to have this brilliant system of online communications and social media available to us. So we can connect with new midlife women all over the world. We can run interviews, lectures, discussions, and seminars with the wonderful communications technology that is available to us. If you wish to connect up and help the new midlife women community, you can seek me out and give me a card, or if you don't have one, put your name and email address on a piece of paper. I will then send you information on how to connect with our various websites and on publication date of the Love, Sex, New and Midlife Woman book, and how you can pre-order a copy at a very special low price. You can connect with me on our website, which is www.lovemidlifewoman.com, or at our Facebook page, facebook.com, New Midlife Woman. Better still, send me an email. It's jean@lovemidlifewoman.com. I would love to hear from you. Bye. So there we are. That's my piece.
Wow, Jean, this is, you know what, I'm thinking now that each time you send me a letter and they're so beautiful, you always sign with JJ Love. so
Yeah.
I know it's a lot of love coming from you, and it's as if you have this gigantic heart, and you have your ability to understand other human beings it's larger than life. And I was just wondering how hard it is for you to carry both senses of purpose in your life, because from one hand you have the experience as a boy, as you nicely put it, and that's beautiful, and that gives you the insight into what really men are expecting from a woman. And from the other hand, you have this new persona, this amazing, fascinating human being, Jean. So tell me,
Yes.
so please tell me, at what point you decided to trade your unique identity for a double identity, which in a very spiritual way is almost unheard of. And you don't have, what I'm thinking right now is that you don't have anyone to guide you through this journey. It's as if each day you wake up and you have to face a new reality, and you have to make new choices, and you have to think of the outcome in a sense that you are not going to hurt your existing joy, and you are not going to reduce your happiness by making one choice or another. So JJ, why JJ and not just simply John or Jean?
Well, let me try and answer the first part of the question by saying, when this process started, I was in my early 40s. And prior to that, I was very much in my masculine. That was the life I lived and so on. But when this thing started to happen, I was quite two ways. I was shocked by it, but I also was entranced by it. I remember the first time I got my wife to make me up, and I put on this blonde wig. The blonde wig was a famous part of it. And I looked in the mirror and said, "Who are you?" Now, I look at photographs of myself in those days, and they are pretty, well, what's the right way of putting it? They show me what I am, which was or was then, which was a man wearing feminine clothes. And so the process went on for about 10 years, with me constantly saying to myself, "What are you doing? What are you doing?" But at the same time, this fascination and joy and pleasure of doing it kept me going. So all that time, I really was regarding myself as a kind of freak, really. And I knew of other people who went through this journey of the transsexual one, where they go through a physical change and have surgery and take hormones to change their body as much as they can towards being a woman. Of course, they never can be a woman's body. But that didn't interest me. Of necessity, I was living this double life in those days because I still had a male life and things to do and so on, and a family and all things that I wanted to protect. I didn't want to jeopardize any of that. But this fascinating journey was unrolling. And one day I'll tell my story of those 10 years, because with photographs you can see a transformation from a very, if you like, crude approximation of a woman, it's really a man dressed as a woman, to what I am today, where I feel, and all the feedback I get is that I come across as a feminine presence. As I've said in my talk, I've been amazed at how many women have taken me into their confidence and told me their stories and their wishes and desires and disappointments. And that it gives an indication that they are prepared to accept me in my feminine role without holding it against me. So today I'm so much more comfortable because I've fully reconciled myself to living both lives. I wouldn't wish to give up. Well, I couldn't give up either. I mean, it's what makes me feel a complete person. But bear in mind, when it started in my early 40s. And this is the midlife change, midlife crisis, which applies to men just as much as to women, although many men don't acknowledge it. Women are more ready to acknowledge this change going on in themselves. I'm not saying that they necessarily handle it well. That's why we have the new midlife women community, to help them through it and help them to a good outcome. So for me, my life falls into two halves. One is when I was living full out as a man, and now living a balanced life as both a man and a woman. Does that go some way to answering your question?
Yes, actually, I'm thinking that each one of us without even having a choice, goes from being a baby, toddler, then teenage and young adult, and then we reach midlife, the glory of the adult life, the most extraordinary period of adult life, when life actually starts again.
Definitely.
So for me, the body part, when I remember even now I was looking at the table and it was really, really huge. So I must have been so little that I couldn't see the what is on the table.
Yes.
So I still remember that. And then I remember my first dog, he seems to be huge at the time because I was so little.
Yes.
But then I look at picture and I realized that it was a normal sized dog. Why I would remember him so big? So you see, I support my memories, and my mind helps me understand certain things I couldn't understand at the time.
Yes.
So it's almost like distancing yourself from the body you're in at the time, and now you have the luxury of looking yourself the same way you look at a painting, a masterpiece. So if you go too close, you smell the painting, you can't see it. So you have to have the bigger picture. So you distance yourself and you see the masterpiece. So it's the same with your body. But I'm more into what's happening in your mind, what's happening with your feelings. And I know personally that you are on a journey, you are a woman with a mission. And perhaps your life as a man on this planet was simply to become the woman who could understand women better than any other man, and could help men understand women better. I know that you do a lot of research and you dedicate a lot of your time into trying to understand aspects of being a woman that no other woman could think about. And I'm not going to go into any details right now, but I was wondering if you could share with our listeners, what are your discoveries? What's exciting in your life that you discovered lately, since you embrace your femininity, and since you declare your truth, and since you accepted your truth, and realizing that actually you don't need anyone's acceptance. You are who you are, and you have to celebrate yourself. So what's exciting right now? I know you are writing, you are broadcasting, you are interviewing amazing people, experts in the field, and you create great relationship with your clients, with our listeners. So what's exciting and is happening right now as we speak? What are your latest discoveries regarding femininity and the power of femininity within?
Right. Well, once again, you ask such interesting questions with so many parts. I'll try and do that justice. On the first part that you asked, I just came to mind that on a couple of occasions, women friends said to me, "You should have been a woman." And even before I knew what I was saying, or before I could see the big picture that I can today, I would say, "Oh no, if I had been born and lived as a woman, I couldn't have done the work I'm here to do." And I don't know where that answer came from, because it wasn't a thought-out answer, it just came out. But it is consistent with what you said very kindly, that this has been a mission that's been embryonic and sort of evolving all these years before I had a clue what it was going to be and what it was all about. But going on to your thing, I must say, when I was writing the book, Love, Sex and the Midlife Woman, I was amazed at how much information I'd accumulated, both from talking to midlife women and also from the books that I've read on the subject. But the biggest thing that I think, to answer your question, is the learning about the power of the masculine and the feminine as forces, metaphysical forces, above we who are operating in bodies. There is... in philosophy or metaphysics, the concept of the masculine and the feminine being equally important and vital for creativity, or for anything actually to happen. It has to be a combination of the masculine and the feminine as esoteric forces, spiritual forces. Now, when we take those on in our bodies, we have to make a choice. And this is actually quite a problem, because at some stage before birth, or around about the time of birth, we were offered a choice. You could say, you want to go into this world, this Earth planet, and you can either be a male or a female, which you want to be. And we do have that choice. I mean, I believe that we had that choice. Even, we influence what happens in the womb. But because you're one, you can't be the other normally. So we have this, we make this choice. But as spirits, we don't have a choice, though masculine or feminine. We are complete. We embody both the masculine, or not embody. We include with our spiritual identity both the masculine and the feminine. Having made that choice, we do hanker for the part we had to leave behind, wherever that was. So for a lot of people, that is a problem. They have to come to terms with the part of them they feel is missing. Does that make any sense?
Wow, it's fascinating. I could listen to you for hours, and I also learned that most men, from the stories I'm listening to, and I have thousands and thousands of people from various cultures, from different paths of life, sharing with me what's happening when you reach your 40s or even late 40s. Especially men, they feel the need to order a Ferrari, or do something crazy, or check how powerful their sexuality is, because they don't receive at home the same attention or the undivided attention of their female partners, who might be now into, I don't know, their own soul searching. They're not quite sure if they want to be a woman. Perhaps they try to experience the empowerment, women empowerment, which is so popular those days, and they don't know how to balance their own femininity with the desire to be more. And I was thinking of all the men who feel as if they are left in a cold, and how they turn their hearts to stone almost. And of course, then there is no love in the marriage or the relationship with the woman of their life. And now they start looking outside. There's nothing left inside their relationship, and then they have to carry the blame. So to me, it's so much injustice done to men simply because we think they're supposed to never change. They're supposed to be steady and loving you no matter what. And I know that most men are like children. They never grow up, and they have this beautiful heart, and they are excited about life. They don't get bored of life. And of course, when the boredom hits the bedroom, perhaps it's very hard on both, but perhaps it's hard on men because they cannot grow into old men. What is your view on what men want from life?
Well, by my observation, is that what happens with men, they're around about the age of 40, or maybe a little earlier, but around about, or just a little later, they suddenly start to feel their virility dripping away, or trickling away, let's say. And so they make almost a redoubled effort to demonstrate their virility. One of the most unfortunate things is that they tend to be attracted to a younger woman, or they tend to make overtures to younger women because it reminds them of themselves when they were in what their most powerful virile stage. They often look after big powerful cars and other things to restore this virility that they feel is ebbing away. Now, unfortunately, women, because you said they've got their own preoccupations, and during the time of bringing up children, which is very time consuming and so forth, my observation is that the man is always last on the list, his lowest priority, unless it's a very sensible, wise woman who realizes that allowing that to happen is going to encourage the possibility of the wandering eye of the male partner. So one of the things that is stressed in my book, Love, Sex and the Midlife Woman, is that to keep a partner, a male partner, one has to retain one can't put back the clock. One can't be as attractive, you can be as attractive, but one doesn't have the same physical attractions that one had in one's 20s. But my view is that mature women have potentially so much more attractive quality. And if they can keep that man eating out of their hand by using their feminine power, then they have a chance of keeping that relationship. But it's got to be worked at. And to some extent, what you said earlier, I agree with. Men are quite simple. They're not simple. I don't mean they're unintelligent, but in terms of the life force and all the rest of it, they've got a very simple programming. If they don't find the sexual stimulus at home, then they'll look for it outside. I was appalled to hear some statistics that I can't remember where I heard them, but something like 60 to 70% of marriages have to endure some form of infidelity. That is appalling.
Coming back to the wandering eye aspect of a relationship, well, I think when you are single, that's not something you even fear about, because you are free to love or fall in love, fall out of love. Is no meter for how much love you could have in your life. But when you are in a relationship, of course, a certain amount of love has to be alive in your life, because otherwise it's not love. It's not something you could say, I don't need it. It's like oxygen. So you really have to have it. It's the need of, almost is more the need of giving love, of being loved and being loved, so I was wondering if you could go into explaining for our listeners what makes love such an important part of life. What makes love the one dimension in our lives that we can't ignore, we can't just let go?
Gosh, that is a very deep question, because love is like, it's one word that has to do a lot of work. It has to cover all sorts of quite basic, because we don't have in English more words. The Latin language has 2 words for love, and I believe the ancient Greeks had 5 words for love. So they were able to distinguish between different kinds of love. But we have just 1 word that has to do the whole job. Now, it's quite difficult. I certainly found it very difficult to come to terms with the word love at a higher level. I mean, I knew that I loved my wife and I loved my children, and I supposed I loved my parents. But those were very predictable and ordinary. The bigger aspect of love, the broader aspect of love, which goes into spiritual realms, is something different, and it's got to be worked at. It's got to be worked at. And what I would say is that we can be quite prurient, especially in Anglo-Saxon society. We talk about love between 2 people without sex, but sex is part of the package of love. The sexual drive, the creativity drive, which goes well beyond, if you like, just the physical sex, is such a powerful force within us. And creativity and love go very closely together. So if a person is being creative, they're expanding themselves through loving themselves. I mean, this is the big thing. The absence of self-love causes one to shrink. So the first step, I would say, in all of this is love yourself. And that's the message which I was saying earlier. Midlife women have so many distractions and so many excuses not to look at themselves in order to love themselves. And I deal with a lot of that in the book, Love, Sex and the Midlife Woman. Because if you don't love yourself, you can't really expect other people to love you. And what's more, the quality of love you can give to other people is going to be pretty thin. Does that give...
Wow. Wow. And coming back to what you said earlier about happiness.
Yes.
I know our friend, the amazing one and only Adrienne Marks, the Me-Time host at W.O.R.K.S, she said that happiness is an inside job. So you have to take it as your own responsibility. You don't have the liberty. You can't take the liberty to blame others. You can't expect others to deliver happiness on a plate for you. And
absolutely.
I was wondering, what do you do those days for happiness? How do you spend your time working on happiness?
Well, I can only say that it's crept up on me. I mean, if you had asked me 10 years ago, let's say, was I happy? I would say, well, I suppose so. I never thought about it. Today, I feel this kind of bubbling up happiness, and it's not just. Well, let me go back a step. The philosophy, which I believe, is that when you are on your purpose, when you find your purpose in life, then everything falls into place, and you will find love, happiness and fulfillment. Well, let's put it in that order. You'll find love, loving on a bigger scale, on a broader scale, loving everybody and everything. That leads to fulfillment, and that leads to happiness.
Wow.
So it is an inside job, because those first two issues are difficult to do. Learning to love yourself, really love yourself, really. Louise Hay has this phrase, look in the mirror, especially when you're in a hurry, just look in the mirror and say, I love you, and then move on. Now, many people can't even look at themselves in the mirror, let alone say, I love you.
It's very intriguing what you're saying. And I remember back in school, we were learning Latin and all the, the knowledge from 2000 years ago. We had to learn that. It was my favorite topic always. But I remember once I read this quote by Confucius, everything changed for me. So it was about knowledge. Anyway, so he was saying that real knowledge is to know how ignorant are the others, or to know the extent of one's ignorance. And thinking of how much you know about women ignorance when it comes to understanding their own energy, their own femininity, their own kind of silent powers. What is your take? What is your message? You dedicate your life towards educating women to overcome suicidal, to overcome difficult situation, to overcome ruining the rest of their life and turning their whatever is happening in their life into a glory, into victory. What is your take on how ignorant women are when it comes to their own worth, when it comes to acknowledging their true worth?
Well, firstly, I would prefer to use the word innocent rather than ignorant. I mean, yes, the reason our lives, I believe, fall into the two parts is that in the first part, we're following what I call our biological programming. To the gender we're allocated, our bodies and so forth. Society starts programming us from the first day we emerge from the womb. It says, you're a boy, you do this, these are how you get treated. You're a girl, this is what you do, and this is how you're treated. And so that programming goes in. And then as we move into adulthood, we follow the program that nature has got for us, which is basically procreation. Nature's job is to repopulate the planet with our species. So, we don't have to think hard. You don't need to go on a course to learn how to make a baby. And people get together, they have families, they bring them up. Well, most, and I have to say most parents, because it's rather unjust to men, most young men, when they have children, take responsibility. They do. They act as responsible parents, certainly for the first 10 years or so. So both the men and women are following this biological programming, which is designed to produce more of our species to populate the planet. So that's the second half is when the biological programming has come to an end. It's done its job. Nature's lost interest to us in our 40s. Marianne Williamson says that. Couldn't care less whether we have any more sex or anything like that. But we still have the machinery to do that. But the sex is only part of it. We are potentially such loving beings in our maturity. We know so much. We have sympathy, compassion, and all these wonderful things. And we're free to exercise them. We've got another 40 years of life at least in front of us. And we want to do something fulfilling. I've just put a short extract from Wayne Dyer on my Facebook page, in which he says in this sort of thing, everybody has this deep desire for fulfillment. They want to be purposeful. They want to do something which makes them feel fulfilled. So so I've lost the question, but it's the same for men as it is for women, finding themselves. You can find the question. The question is, the answer to the question, what am I here for? Once you find the answer to that question, the rest is quite easy.
So you're saying that finding your passion is a divine duty. It's not something you could avoid. You could delay it, but eventually it will happen to you. If it's not happening for you, it's always happening for you, basically. So that's the miracle of life, growing to the person who can deliver your life purpose. Yeah. But I was wondering, and forgive me if I'm going a little bit too far this time. I was wondering, what do you think is possible for women once they understand their greatness, once they realize their true worth, and once they realize that finding yourself is not about finding yourself, is not even about creating yourself, is about delivering love, delivering the best version of yourself, delivering that golden version of yourself where you are full of love and nothing can change that.
Well, you say it so wonderfully. I all I can say is as I agree. But unfortunately, the midlife women start at this disadvantage because society says, "Oh, you've done your job. You've had children. You've provided a home for them, and so forth. And so you're now a back number." Now, unfortunately, midlife women, so often go into agreement with that. But that's not true. They have the potential to become these marvelous beings. I mean, I quote in my book, Love, Sex, the Midlife Woman, some outstanding examples of women who have made such a contribution to our society, as Mother Teresa, of course, but Marianne Williamson, Mary Robinson, these are women who are doing so much in the world. Mary Robinson, well, she's still at it. She was the President of Ireland, and interesting enough, she and the Queen of England, between them, or Queen of Britain, really brought about the rapprochement between England and the Republic of Ireland, which had been so troublesome to women. You see, this is an indication of what women can do that men can't. Now, my belief is if all the main countries were run by, had a woman leader, and if you like, a power group which was also accepting of the feminine. It doesn't have to be all women; it can be some men, but basically, with the feminine power being acknowledged and being used, we would get rid of an awful lot of the world's problems.
So coming back to the world that life that is so simple, we make it so complicated. So what do you think is happening in the world right now? What do you think is next for American women? What do you think is next for African women? Where do you think the breakthrough is going to start? Do you think that Hillary Clinton is going to be the next president and therefore everything will change? Or do you think perhaps that Trump is going to be somehow elected and then African women are going to get together and decide that it is against human nature to allow a male to decide your life? Or what is your vision? What is your educated vision on this? Because you know so much, Gina. I'm thinking, I wish I could go into your mind for 5 seconds and spoil myself with everything you know. So tell us, what is your vision on what's next on this planet?
I think, yes, okay, I'll do my best. It's a very big question.
I know, but you are bigger than this question, so okay. Let us have it.
I think we have to accept that the different parts of the planet are at different stages in a process. So as far as the emergence of women in their wonderful magnificence is concerned, we could say that is something which is limited to the let's say to United States and Britain and Scandinavia. I think those 3 countries are where we see women closest to fulfilling their purpose, their potential, their promise, let's say. Moving across non-English speaking Europe, because that varies from country to country. If you go to Africa, it's a pretty, they have their own problems. One of the groups which we support is the Womankind charity, which is particularly concerned with the plight the condition of women in Africa, in South America, and certain parts of Asia. But then if you go east to the Middle East, unfortunately women have an even worse deal there, in that the male suppression is so institutionalized that they're a long way back, and all one can do is feel compassion for them. But they are moving. I remember hearing a woman in Afghanistan saying that the way that United States coming in and imposing democracy, and it's a contradiction in terms, but that's what they do, is actually counterproductive to women making progress against the male hierarchies that exist in those countries, which they are making some progress. But if it's an imported thing, then that will discredit it and actually work to their disadvantage. Unfortunately, the world is so insensitive to the plight of other people that they have these clumsy actions which work the wrong way. So coming back to the basis of what you're asking is, we have to do the best we can in the places where women have got this. I wouldn't say they've got this freedom. They've asserted themselves. To some extent, their assertion level is almost uncomfortable at times, but then that's part of the issue about living in their masculine rather than using their feminine power. I think the Scandinavians have probably got the best one. I mean, there are women politicians and leadership positions there in those countries who are very civilized, and it shows in the way the country is run, the way the countries operate. I'd like to think that here, with an increasing number of able women at the higher levels of our politics, including as a Prime Minister, we will start to see a difference here. Because, I mean, Margaret Thatcher suffered from the fact that she was a very early pioneer, and in the world as it was in the 1980s, she had to be a masculine woman in order to survive a very masculine world. It's no longer like that, and the new women politicians can use their feminine power to operate, and it will make a difference. It will balance the masculine thrust with the feminine, more rounded, holistic approach, and hopefully with a better outcome. But Hillary Clinton, that is a big question. I mean, I have a brother-in-law who lives in the States, and he said, I'm going to have to vote for Hillary Clinton because I don't want to vote for the other one. But I'm pretty sure she's going to make it. The problem is, it's a very heavily controlled, male-dominated society, despite the fact there are so many women who are asserting themselves in business and to some extent in politics. It's going to be very difficult for her to, in her feminine, because if she's going to make any progress, she's going to have to, just to some extent, operate from her masculine. And of course, a woman operating her masculine is really working against her deeper stuff. It's very, very stressful to do that. I don't know if those comments are helpful, but
well, I always think that when you are in a relationship with yourself or with your partner or even with extended members of your community, or it's always good to remember that nobody is alone. As other people like to bring arguments that actually everybody is alone and it's a very lonely journey, I would like to say that it's good to remember ourselves that we belong to each other. It is only one planet. There is plenty of room for all kinds of ideas and situations, and not only circumstances we could create with better thoughts, but it's about time, I think, for each one of us to think who they really want to be. Because in your case, you prove to all of us, actually, that it's a matter of choice. You are who you feel you want to be. You are who you are in your heart. And not being congruent with who you are in your heart could make you very, very unhappy. So whatever it takes, you have to listen to your heart and bring it out into the world, because that could only be happiness. Recognizing who you are and embracing your truth. There are things that takes a lot of courage to work with and package it in a way that will fit with the rest of the reality. But if you ask me, Jean, reality is wrong. Look around. So many people are unhappy. They are terribly unhappy. They even after they achieve a very successful financial life, they are still very unhappy. And I'm thinking, coming back to happiness, I'm thinking that perhaps there is a trick, there is something we are missing because we are too busy chasing external goals. What do you think is the one key message you could offer our listeners tonight so they go away with it and they never look back?
Okay, well, I think something has come up from what you said. You inspired me to this thought, or to bring out this thought as an answer to your question. Women have to come to terms with what's in themselves, but the key thing, and this partly goes back to the earlier question, is the strength of women and the future that the future of our planet in their hands is that women cooperate, whereas men compete. And that difference, and it's not just women. It's in the essence of femininity and masculinity. So what the strength that women have is the amount of help and support that is available to them in a cooperative way, because women are much more willing to be open and honest in talking to other women about their difficulties, their challenges, their aspirations, and so forth. But men were, to them, it's an admission of failure. And so they would go a long way before they would ever confide in someone else or ask for help. There are exceptions, of course, but do you see what I mean? In terms of all women have this inclination to collaborate and cooperate, and that is their strength. And if they can embrace that and look for help, and that's why I hope that the new midlife women community will be able to do the job that I would love it to do, which is to provide a safe space for women to come and explore themselves, explore what they're looking for. Because you mentioned earlier about making money. Lots of people make money, and they're some of the most unhappy people in the world. So making money was not their life purpose. Having the money was just a means to have if you like, the freedom to be able to do something else, but they've yet to find out what that something else is. And that's what makes them so unhappy.
Wow, Jean. I know we are overdue to end your show, but I just wonder if you could let us have your last thoughts for tonight's show.
Well,
if it's something I missed asking you, I do apologize, but I'm sure there'll be many, many occasions where we could ask more questions.
I'd be happy to answer them. Now, I think I could only come back to this thing is you can't expect to get love until you love yourself. And so the first step in the process is to learn about yourself, to go deep inside, to find out what you are about, what you're here for, what your purpose is. And it's not difficult. Well, it is difficult, but there are plenty of signs. The things that have happened to you, the things that you had an enthusiasm for, even for a short time, those give you clues. They give you clues. There's no, someone who's a painter or a musician, they had clues from very early on that was going to be their life's purpose. For us who are not particularly gifted in those obvious directions, it's a bit more difficult. But everybody knows deep down what that purpose is. You just have to dig for it. And in the process of that, you learn to love yourself, because the absence of loving yourself is based upon disconnect. The fact that you think, who is this person? Why am I here? What have you got to do with? They're talking to themselves, because the spirit is knocking. This is one of the things I used to say. Up till the age of 40 or so, your spirit leaves you alone because you've got your biological imperatives to deal with. After that, it comes knocking on the door and says, "It's my turn now." So, does that give the answer to the question? Listen to that deep voice inside you, your spirit. It's time for you to acknowledge it and listen to it.
Wow. Thank you so much, Dean. Until next time, from both of us is goodbye. And remember, love. Don't leave home without it. Goodbye.
Bye.